there. Hi, everyone. It's Therese. Happy whatever year day it is. It's Groundhog's Day. That's what it feels like. Hopefully you're doing well. Okay, we're going to do karma cards today. I took last week off. It took like a personal break to get centered and just focused in. And actually, before we do karma cards, that's sort of the message my team wants me to share with you. They're asking us to really focus in on what you love, like recommitting to what you love. I don't know about you, but maybe you feel like your vital energy is just dipping a little bit now. Like vital energy just feels low. You're starting to just again feel like you're sort of stuck in a time loop, just sort of living the same days over and over right now, which kind of takes away some of that vibrancy and potency. By the way, if you're not, good for you. Seriously, that's incredible, because the reality is right now everything feels very constricted for reasons we don't have to get into, because we all know why. It just feels really constrictive in energy, and that can cause us to feel sort of lackluster. Also, maybe you're not focusing on fun as much as you could, right? Maybe it doesn't feel appropriate to focus on fun. My team says, no, it's in those times when it doesn't feel appropriate that it might actually be necessary. So I hope that you're finding things that bring you joy, that make you feel that sensation of laughter and fun. It's really important that we keep focusing in on those. That is what balances all this BS out. The first message that the team has to share is just the fact that it's a good time to refocus in on, are you focusing on what you love? Even if it's something simple. You love cooking, are you focusing on that? Are you really getting into it? Are you like bringing yourself to that activity, right? Don't save, you don't need to save yourself for something better. Make that the better thing. Like go all in with love and just use the opportunity that's given to you to really just bring yourself to the activity, to the moment of what you're loving. If you find that you're backing away from it, for example, you might know that I make art. I make art for a living, and I love making art. I feel very blessed to do what I love. But even I was like, like I'm like, I want to, but I just feel drained energetically, because the energy is very potent and heavy as we're moving up in frequency. So because of that, I kind of just made a bunch of excuses about why I couldn't right now or didn't have the energy. And I finally was like, F it. This is what gets me out of this funk. So sometimes you got to just get yourself to get in there and do it. And then that helps you get out of the funk, right? Like sometimes you just have to like fake it till you make it in that case. But when you know what you love, and it can be simple, it's time to like devote more energy to it and really like bring your soul into it. And that's going to create that soul infusion that we're used to feeling, that feels kind of like shaky right now. We had a huge solar storm. I think it kind of went into last week, but it was definitely in the week before, and that wiped a lot of people out physically, because high solar energy, now we're looking at it on a spiritual perspective, because that's what I like to do. It's great because we're getting all these downloads, all these cellular memory upgrades, all this DNA activation. That's great, but it also comes with it on the physical level, radiation. That's what higher solar energy is, right? I do think that it comes in such a way that we can adjust to it, but that also creates a sensation of sickness. So, people have real symptoms when it comes to high levels of radiation, and we're getting another little solar flux. So we have to understand that even though on a spiritual level, it's all good, on a physical level, it can feel like ass. So if you find yourself feeling a little bit like, I don't even want to do something I enjoy, it could be just because you're recovering and recuperating from all that energy. I'm going to recommend that you go back to the episode I did called The Body in Ascension. I had my friend Amber come on, and she is an amazing health coach who talked us through what we might need to do to help supplement our bodies during ascension. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out on my YouTube channel. It was a really good one. And it's easy stuff to incorporate. It's not complicated. Before we go into karma cards, the other things that I wanted to tell you. October is a potent month. There are so many big things happening this month. As you know, on October 1st, we had a full moon in Aries. And this was a very important and potent full... It's hard to say words now. It's important and potent full moon. Its message was all about learning the difference between assertive and aggressive. So those who are with me in the spirit circle, we got a nice download about that, what that looks like, how that feels. Basically, assertive simply means that you're standing for you. You have your own back. That's assertive. I know you know where you stand and you have your own back. Aggressive is an attack energy. And the reason why it was important to look at this is because Mars represents the sacred masculine. And for a long time, Mars was being inverted. Its energy was in the negative masculine, not the sacred masculine. And Mars is in retrograde right now, and it's a huge retrograde. And its placement in Aries, this hasn't happened since, I believe, 1988. And this placement with Mars, which represents our action, in the sign of Aries, which is the sign it rules the sacred masculine, it gets reviewed how we're using action. In 1988, when it was last placed there, the Berlin Wall fell, and this was a huge moment for peace. And there's a significance to that between these two, these two placements. So that's something we want to consider. Mars will be in retrograde until November 13th, which is the divine feminine. 13 is the divine feminine, and these two work together, right? Sacred masculine, divine feminine. It's such a beautiful alignment. So that was the first thing that happened. The next thing that happened is on October 4th, Pluto was in retrograde since April, and now it is moved direct. And this is a big deal because when Pluto was in retrograde, it was our turn to do the inner shadow work. That's why all the stuff that was just coming up in you about maybe your feelings of worth, about feelings that you didn't know you were still holding on to came up, your fears came up, everything that you needed to process and integrate was coming up for you while Pluto was in retrograde. Well, now it's moving direct, which means all the shadows that need to be revealed are going to be revealed now. And we're already starting to see some stuff play out in the external world. So it's going to be a really interesting time with this, the Mars retrograde and Pluto direct, and Pluto is squaring Saturn Mars is squaring Saturn while it's retrograding. So we've got this weird energy of like looking at how aggression was used and the karmic tie between that and the rebalancing of that energy, along with all of this shadow stuff coming out to be seen. It's a very intense energy. So then on October 9th, which is coming up in a few days, we've got a second Mars-Pluto square. So this is where this gets crazy because Mars is in retrograde. Pluto just went direct. It's going to square. These two are going to square, and this is going to create a higher sense of tension. So something is really going to come to the surface around the 9th and after, I'm sure after. So things are going to come to a boil. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. And then, as if that's not enough, and then on October 13th, Divine Feminine again, Mercury goes retrograde for the second time this year. And that's going to affect communication and technology. So we'll have to see what happens. But Mercury goes retrograde, get this, all the way through to November 3rd. So technology, communication, October 13th through November 3rd, we're in a retrograde. I mean, the timing of planets this year it's insane. It's like the most amazing cosmic soap opera to watch, because it's telling us stuff is happening, which obviously we know. But it's almost like they're timing it by the stars. It's just incredible. The last one I want to talk about that makes October just this very auspicious month is that we have a second full moon. So we had and they're bookending. We had the full moon October 1st, and then we have another one October 31st, the beginning and the end, right? And the second full moon is called a blue moon. Okay. So this is very like, what is going on? Like, what is going on? Because full moons represent culminations and like resolution, right? So we've got these things like culminating and resoluting together. So that's just some of what is happening in the sky this month. So if you felt like October might be like the most intense month, we'll see. Like, I'm sure we'll see. We won't be bored. That's for sure. So it's definitely a good time to stock up on popcorn, because it's going to be quite the show, I think. It's going to be quite a show. All right, so that's why it's so important to also feed what you love. Keep feeding that. Keep focusing in. Put yourself into it. If you love your dog, send that intention and love and devotion into what you love, and let it amplify around you. It picks your frequency up when you just don't have that. When you just don't have the oomph to do it of your own free will, love for what brings you joy can help you do that. Let's get into karma cards. All right. So for those who haven't played with me in a while or have never played before, yeah, full moon on Halloween, I'm telling you, it is wild. Let me tell you how these work. So we've got 3 decks here. We've got the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. I've already talked to my team in spirit. I've asked them, what is the message for right now? And they've already given me an answer. So I have 2 sets of answers here, and this is how you play. I have action answers in red and outcome answers in blue. And all you have to do is tune in and feel into, do I need action related answers right now, or do I need outcome? So you type in red for action or blue for outcome. And of course, many people want both, and that is perfect. So I would say type in both, or purple. Let me tell you the timing of this reading. So today is the 6th. So they're saying that today it goes from the 6th of October to the 14th. So right after Mercury goes into retrograde. So we'll see what happens. All right, the flavor of this reading, while you're deciding, this is all about the mind. It is all about the mind. We have Mercury in Libra, which is where the sun is right now, in the 9th house, which is another mental house. It's the house of mental expansion. Libra is an air sign. Air signs are ruling the mind. This is mind. Mind. All right, so for those who are choosing red or both, your spiritual action at this time, communicate relationships as if it or they came from God. Communicate relationships as if they came from God. Because they did. So we got to remember, when Mercury goes into retrograde, and it's going to go into retrograde during this little reading, Mercury retrograde is all about needing to be more articulate, or taking our time to make sure we're being understood. The tendency when Mercury is in retrograde is to assume more than usual, which can lead to misunderstandings, miscommunication, and conflict because of that. When we have miscommunications, we can really just sort of pigeonhole a person and decide that this person is doing something to me they purposely don't want to understand. We can kind of let the ire really build up, and we almost forget who they are and where they're from. The relationships are the thing that these people, all the people, This is why we're here. This is really what we came for. It wasn't the stuff. It wasn't the achievements. It wasn't the cute hairdos. It wasn't any of that. It was the relationships with any beings, right? So people, animals, trees, plants, all of it. Anything that's holding that sentient life, that's communicating with you. That's what we came for. It can be really easy to forget that, especially in times of great conflict and misunderstanding. And what a time for conflict and misunderstanding. What's this Mercury retrograde going to do during this time? I feel like it's the ones who keep holding on to the fact that in the end, the only thing that will have mattered was how we treated each other. That's it. 4 years will come and go. Something else is going to happen. In the end, all that will have mattered is how we treated each other. And I feel like this, if you're listening to this and you're here, this message is for you because you're the one who's got that mental awareness already. You've got it. So it's kind of like the universe is saying, you hold this torch. You're going to hold it for people who will completely lose their mind. That's okay. You're here, right? And you're the light. You are the light in this. So just remember, communicate relationships as if they came from God. All right, mental action at this time. Analyze the beauty of philosophies and laws involved. Analyze the beauty of philosophies and laws involved. So the 9th house is the house of mental expansion, which is all about the higher mind, higher thinking. Which is, this is where we start thinking about how we're connected, what we're connected to, what are cosmic law and universal law. And I love this because astrology would fall into that category. When we're thinking about the beauty of philosophies and laws involved, and we're thinking about cosmic law, and I'm telling you about these crazy alignments happening this year and how it's almost like the stars are telling you what's going to play out and how it ends and where it's going just by looking. What's really interesting, I'm going to take us way out for a second. You already know how this ends. Okay, you've seen the script. You know the show. You know what's going to happen. So it's not about being surprised by it. It's almost like playing your part. You're an actor here, playing your part. And there's a beauty to that because it means you were chosen, you were cast, you are talented. The part you're playing, it's like you were born for this role, right? And there's something kind of, when you can let yourself get into that, when you let that fill you, there's just something so, it makes me want to cry. It's so mesmerizing. It's so incredible because you have a part to play. You are an important player. Every single one of us is. Everybody's going to bring something to the table. And if you just let that kind of enfold you, what are you capable of? What are you going to do? What's your part? It's so exciting to me. So it's kind of like allow yourself to just get saturated. Just let yourself be enveloped in that thought. And notice how it turns your heart on. Like your heart turns on. You're like, wow, what would that mean if I let that in? Okay, physical action. Let your mind tell you how to do it with partners and do it in a big way. Let your mind tell you how to do it with partners and do it in a big way. So in this time period that we're in, Libra being an air sign, being connected to the mind, Libra being about justice and fairness and other people and working together. This is, and doing it in a big way. How do we work together? How can we work together? When we see, differences, when we see things that are separating us, not everyone, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to generalize, but there's so many people focused on what separates them. The antidote is focusing on what brings us together. And there are things that bring us all together. There are things. When you get into that mindset, like the whole, something's going to unlock, right? There's going to be something to unlock. And it's one of these things where do it in a big way just really means that sense of commitment. Assertion is a form of commitment. You're not abandoning yourself. You're sticking with yourself. So let your mind tell you how to do it with partners and do it in a big way. Yeah, the question is, what do we all share? I'm just going to leave it there so that our minds continue to work with that thought. Okay. So now let's go into outcomes. So for Mercury in Libra in the 9th house of mental expansion, here are your outcomes. Your spiritual outcome is the awareness of cooperation to perfect spiritual values. Yeah. So this is really good. This is definitely we get it. If we ask those questions, how do I work with someone? Imagine, if you will, that you were, okay, this is a weird one, but just go with me on it. They're showing me this. They're like, imagine you're just trapped in an elevator with people who hold different beliefs than you. Would you effing care if you needed to get out of that elevator and you had to do it together? Would you care? Would they care? What would be the most important thing? Right? Working together, obviously. It totally changes it. So the awareness of cooperation to perfect spiritual values. Your spiritual values are going to get honed by doing the work that is harder, right? You know, hanging out with your soul tribe, talking about the things that you all love and share together. This is great. It's fulfilling, but it's not where the spiritual level up happens. The spiritual level up happens when you acknowledge all this other stuff. Like if you put yourself in that elevator scenario in your mind and you're like, there are so many people right now that are having conflict. But if you took the situation away and you just had to work together, which is really what we have to do, how would that change? How would you change? How would you be different? That's when you get the ascension upgrade stuff kicking in and turning on, because you're thinking in a new and different way, right? We're getting out of the lower constructs and into the higher mind when we do that. Mental outcome at this time: many thoughts about or from decisions about long-range thinking or travel. So yeah, this is, again, we're thinking further down the road, because again, things are going to be different in 4 years. We don't know. I mean, there's so much concentration in this one specific moment in time that I don't think people are realizing that this too passes. Whatever happens, it also passes, right? So further along than that, further down the road, even more, even they're just where we're talking about thinking longer range, maybe towards the end of your life. A lot of times this long range thinking can also mean, I wouldn't call it the deathbed, but it's kind of like thinking about, if I were to leave, what would I regret not having done? Right? So it's almost like you go to that place and you're like, if I knew it was my last day, or tomorrow was my last day, what do I wish I'd done differently? Do I wish I would have invested, like we were talking about earlier, more time and energy and just bringing myself into the moment? Or would I have wished that I could just have let something go, or risked being uncomfortable? So that kind of long range thinking is what they're talking about. Physical outcome: many words resulting from the fairness shown by what is to be shared. That always feels a little prophetic when they put it out like that. Many words resulting from the fairness shown by what is to be shared. A well-timed boo. Okay. Oh, there's just so much information coming out. And I honestly feel like there's so many plot twists. Like I said, October is just full of exciting placements and things coming to light that have been suppressed since April. So we'll see, right? But fairness shown, that is a really positive, that's a really positive for perspective of what's to come. So I honestly think that fairness comes from those holding a more open perspective, where they're really trying to hold a place of compassion and acceptance for those who think differently. It's so important. So I think that you're the one who creates the fairness. You have that ability. And just to end this, I think I talked about this maybe a couple weeks ago, but I'll state it again. I love my team. My team in spirit, and your team in spirit, I'm sure, is similar, but mine doesn't pull any punches. Whenever I'm feeling sorry for myself, they don't really let me I don't get to wallow. They're not going to go, oh, poor Therese. They don't ever do that. So I was having a poor Therese moment a couple weeks ago, and I was just feeling really down on myself. And I was like, so-and-so doesn't call me to check up on me. They don't care anymore. Nobody cares how I feel. No one's checking in. No one calls, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, poor me, right? And my team goes, well, did you call them? And I went, well, no. And they said, all right, well, it's going to be the most mature person who reaches out first. And I was like, ow. Ow, on the inside, because they know that gets to me, because one of the things that I want so much is to have that mature. I want to mature on all the levels, right? I want to have the spiritual maturity. I want to gain wisdom and stuff. And they just hit me right with it. They were like, it's the mature person who will reach out first. So while you're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself, are you actually being are you taking the high road and actually thinking about them? And I wasn't. I was thinking about myself. And I wasn't being generous in my thoughts, right? I was wallowing in these low feelings, but I was also kind of blaming other people. I wasn't being fair in my thoughts. I wasn't considering the fact that these people that I was thinking of, who I miss and love and wanted connection with, might also be needing someone to reach out to them. And it was one of those moments where I was like, right. So I feel like this placement just simply talks about the fact that that you have that ability. You're holding that maturity. If you're listening to this, if this is resonating for you, you are the one who's got that ability to hold fairness. You have the ability to listen and stay open and expanded. It doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean you don't have feelings. You can have the feelings. You can have the stuff you got to work through to get there, but you can do it. And that's the message, that you are the one who can do it. You're awake. You can do it, right? So they just want you to know that. So I hope that was helpful. And also what I want to let you know is I just released a new podcast episode, like right a couple hours ago before this. And it's a really interesting one. It might be a triggering one for some people. I'm not sure. It's called The First Lie. It's an interesting concept. So The First Lie. So if you want, you can check out my podcast. It's the Modern Mystic Soul Podcast. It's on all the platforms. And I will put a link somewhere so you could just click on it and listen. Again, the only disclaimer I'll say is that if it triggers anybody at all, just walk away, right? Not everything is for you. So if it really is upsetting, just walk away. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy it. I hope it stimulates thought. I hope it gets you feeling excited and empowered. And it was just something I felt compelled to share. So just one more tool to share with you. All right, everyone, sending you so much love. Mwah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.